In this nugget, I'll walk you through how we can grant administrative permissions in Horizon View by leveraging a feature called Access Groups. Let's begin. I'd like you to imagine that Bob and Lois are both junior administrators for Horizon View. And so we've decided to give them some responsibility. We want to put Bob in charge of all the manual pools, and we want to put Lois in charge of all the automatic pools. Now, a great thing to do would be to make sure that we don't give Bob so much authority inside of Horizon View that he could go into Lois's space, her automatic pools, and mess with them. And vice versa. We don't want to have Lois going into the manual pools that Bob's in charge of. So to facilitate this control, we could set up access groups. So for example, we set up Group 1 and Access Group 2. And then once we create these logical groups inside of Horizon View, we would then set up roles. For example, we might have a role that has full access or a role that has read-only access. So for example, maybe we give Bob administrator rights for Group 1 and we give Lois administrative rights for Group 2. And at this point, it's like, woohoo, I've got administrative rights for this group, this access group. But the reality is, the access groups all by themselves are worthless unless we put some pools into those access groups. So subsequently, we could take the manual pools and put them and associate them with access group 1, and we could take the automatic pools and specifically associate them with group 2. And then based on Bob being the administrator of group 1, he could manage the manual pools. And Lois being the administrator of group 2, or whatever rights we give her for the pools that are associated with group 2. And that's that third step right here. Place the pools into the access groups or associate them with the access groups to control who can manipulate and work with those pools. In Horizon View Administrator, under Inventory, we are going to expand the View Configuration, and we're going to go down to Administrators and select that. This is where we could go to create and view any access groups that we currently have in place. And you'll notice that by default for the root, we have the administrator at nuglab.local, who's currently in the role of administrators, which is like King Kong. The joke is, where does King Kong sit when he's tired? And the answer is, anywhere. He's King Kong. Well, this is the administrator. Well, that's the case here. The user called administrator is in the administrator's role at the root, and he's going to inherit those rights all the way down the tree. So if we want to create an access group, we simply click on the button for Add Access Group. And let's go ahead and name this Manual Pools. And we'll click on OK. And we'll create one more access group for automatic pools. And we could create many access groups depending on how we need to separate and subdivide the rights that people need for administering View. So in our example, we're carving out some access groups for the benefit of Bob and Lois. Now our next step, if we take a look at these pools, now notice when we take a look that over here on the right, it shows that administrator, who has the administrator's role, has inherited those rights because administrator is a member of the administrator's role at the root, and it inherits those rights down the tree. So regarding the automatic pools access group, if we want to specify the role that we want Lois to have regarding that access group, all we need to do is have the access group selected and click on Add Permission right here. So from here, we can click on Add, and then we can browse for Active Directory domain users and or groups and add them in. Now, it may make sense to have special groups and associate those groups with those roles. For our example, I'm going to go ahead and simply grab the individual user herself, and that's Lois. So I'm going to take off the groups. I'm going to go ahead and click on Find, and there's Lois right there. And I'll click on OK. Then we'll click on Next, because now we need to identify what role we want Lois to have in conjunction with this access group. So for our example, I'm going to give Lois the administrator's role regarding this access group, and we'll click on Finish. So now it shows that Lois has the administrator's role regarding this automatic pools access group. And we'll go to Manual Pools, we'll click on Add Permission, and we'll browse for Bob, and we'll give Bob the equivalent role for the Manual Pools group. And there's not a whole bunch of users here, so he's pretty easy to find. And we'll click on Next, we'll select the administrator's role, and we'll click on Finish. So now Bob and Lois, respectively, have the administrator role on a couple of groups, access groups. Unfortunately, those access groups aren't associated with any pools. The second step to actually make this mean something is we need to go back to our catalog under Inventory, go to Desktop Pools, and then here we can associate those pools with an access group. So for example, let's go ahead and grab Engineering. I know that's a manual pool. We'll right-click on it. We'll select Edit. And then here on the General page, for Access Group, we'll use the drop-down, and we'll go ahead and say this is going to be associated with the Manual Pools Access Group, and click on OK. And let's go ahead and grab our new linked clone pool. We'll edit that by right-clicking, selecting Edit from the drop-down, and we'll associate that with the access group called Automatic Pools. And we'll click on OK. So now that that's done, Bob or Lois, if they logged into Horizon View Administrator, they would have that administrative role for pools associated with the access group for which they have the administrative role. So here on Bob's computer, let's fire off a browser. And if we open a browser to cs-1.nuglab.local, it says, hey, do you install the VMware Horizon client or use the HTML access? And what we need to do is tack on to the end of that the word admin so we can get the administrative interface for Horizon View Administrator. And with that in place, we can go ahead and now log in as Bob. So we're logging in as Bob at nuglab.local, and we've supplied the password, and now we'll click Login. So now logged in as Bob, if we go to Catalog and we select Desktop Pools, all we see is Engineering, because the Engineering pool is the only pool associated with the access group for which Bob is in the administrator's role. In this nugget, we've demonstrated how we can grant administrative permissions in Horizon View by leveraging access groups. I have had a blast in this nugget. I'm glad that you joined me for it. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.